Elena Vasquez stood alone in the center of the great hall. The room was huge, with walls that curved up into darkness. Around her, 12 different alien species sat in their special seats, all looking down at her like judges. She was the only human in the room, and she felt very small. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet she could not name. Lights floated above her head, showing pictures and videos for everyone to see. Elena watched the images change. There were human ships flying between stars. There were human cities on distant planets. There were human soldiers fighting in wars. "Look at what they have done," said the Zilithian who was speaking against humanity. His voice sounded like breaking glass, and his blue crystal skin caught the light as he moved. "In only 200 years, these humans have spread to 47 star systems. They take planets that do not belong to them. They change the air and water to suit themselves. They do not ask permission." Elena wanted to speak, but she had to wait her turn. That was the rule in the Galactic Council. She watched as more pictures appeared above her. Some showed human terraforming machines working on dead planets, bringing them to life. Others showed human hospitals where doctors from Earth were helping sick aliens. But the Zilithian only talked about the bad things. "They fight too much," the crystal alien continued. "When the harvester ships came to destroy our worlds, yes, the humans helped us fight them off. But look how they fought. They used weapons that could crack planets. They killed without mercy. They scared even their allies." An alien that looked like a giant spider raised one of its 8 arms. This was Counselor Vex of the Arachnid Collective. "The humans saved my people's homeworld from the harvesters," Vex said in a voice like wind through leaves. "Should we forget this? They saved us all," added another voice. This came from a creature that floated in a tank of blue liquid. Elena knew this was Speaker Dune from the Aquatic Union. My people would be dead without human help. But the Zilithian was not finished. Yes, they can fight. That is exactly the problem. They are too good at killing. They breed too fast. They want too much. In 50 more years, there will be 1 trillion humans in the galaxy. In 100 years, there will be 10 trillion. They will eat up everything. Elena felt her heart beating fast. She had heard these arguments before, but never in front of the whole council. The Zilithians had been talking against humanity for months now, ever since the war with the harvesters ended. They said humans were dangerous. They said humans could not be trusted. The floating lights showed new pictures now. These were of human families, human children playing on colony worlds, human farmers growing food. Elena thought these were good pictures, but she could tell from the way the aliens looked at them that they saw something else. They saw too many humans. "The Council has rules about how many children each species can have," the Zilithian said. "These rules keep peace in the galaxy. They make sure no one group gets too big and pushes out the others. But humans will not follow these rules. They say their families are their own business. They make more and more children." This was true, and Elena knew it. Earth's leaders had refused to accept the Council's population limits. They said it was wrong to tell people how many children they could have. Most human colonies had done the same thing. Now there were 12 billion humans spread across dozens of worlds, and more being born every day. A new alien spoke up. This one looked like a bird made of metal, with silver feathers and bright yellow eyes. "I am General Carr of the Vorthan Empire," it said in a voice like a machine. "I have fought beside humans in 3 wars. They are brave, they are loyal, but they are also frightening. When they fight, they do not stop. When they are angry, they do not forgive. I have seen human soldiers keep fighting even when they were dying." Elena remembered those battles. She had been there too, not as a soldier but as a diplomat trying to keep the alliance together. She had seen her people fight with everything. Maybe they did fight harder than other species. Maybe they did seem scary to aliens who gave up more easily. The trial went on for hours. More aliens spoke about humanity's problems. They talked about human pirates who robbed cargo ships. They talked about human corporations that polluted planets. They talked about human rebels who would not obey galactic law. Elena was allowed to speak only once. She stood up straight and tried to sound calm, even though she felt scared and angry. "My people are not perfect," she said. "We make mistakes. We sometimes fight when we should talk, but we also help when others need us. We share our medicine with species who are dying from disease. We send food to worlds that have famines. We have saved more lives than we have taken." She pointed to the pictures still floating above. "You show our cities and call them crowding. We call them homes where families can be safe. You show our ships and call them invasion fleets. We call them rescue vessels that carry help to those who need it. You judge us for being different, but different does not mean wrong." The bird-like Vorthen general tilted its metal head. "But what happens when you decide we are your enemies?" It asked. "What happens when 12 billion humans, with all their ships and weapons and anger, decide they do not like us anymore?" Elena did not have a good answer for that. She could promise that humans would always be friends to the galaxy, but she knew some of the council members would not believe her. Fear was a powerful thing, and these aliens were afraid of humanity's strength. The voting began at sunset, though Elena could not see the sun from inside the Great Hall. One by one, each species cast their vote. Would humanity be allowed to stay in the galaxy, or would they be forced to leave? The Aquatic Union voted to let humans stay. So did the Arachnid Collective and 2 smaller species. But 8 others voted to send humanity away. The Kithara, a species of tall, thin beings with large eyes, chose not to vote at all. "The decision is made," announced the council's leader, an ancient creature that looked like a tree with too many arms. "Humanity is found to be a threat to galactic peace and safety. All human colonies beyond the Sol system must be emptied within 30 standard days. All humans must return to their home system. Any human found in galactic space after that time will be destroyed." Elena felt like someone had hit her in the stomach. 30 days to move 12 billion people. 30 days to abandon 47 worlds that humans had built with their own hands. 30 days to pack up 2 centuries of dreams and go home to a system that could barely feed the people already there. "This is wrong," she said, but her voice was too quiet for anyone to hear. As she walked out of the Great Hall, Elena could hear the aliens already talking about other business. To them, humanity was just a problem they had solved. They did not think about the families who would lose their homes, or the children who had never seen Earth, or the old people who might die during the long journey back to Sol. Elena looked up at the stars through a window in the corridor. Somewhere out there, human colonies were already getting the news. Somewhere out there, her people were starting to cry. 3 years had passed since the Great Exodus began, and Earth had become a world Elena barely recognized. Ships landed every day, bringing more people home from the distant colonies. The sky was always full of metal and fire as transport vessels fought to find landing spots at the crowded spaceports. Elena stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching another convoy of refugee ships approach Earth's blue surface. These ones were coming from the Kepler colonies, some of the last to be evacuated. She could see the ships were old and overcrowded, held together with patches and hope. Some families had been traveling for 8 months to get home. The population count hit 15 billion yesterday, said Marcus Webb, joining her at the window. He had been the governor of Proxima Colony before the exile. Now he worked for Earth's Emergency Resettlement Committee, trying to find homes for all the returning humans. Elena shook her head. "Where are we putting them all?" "Everywhere," Marcus replied. "The ocean cities can hold another 50 million. If we build them taller." The underground farms in Australia are expanding, and the Mars project is ahead of schedule. Mars had been humanity's first real colony, but it had never been more than a research station with a few thousand people. Now it was becoming a second Earth. Giant machines worked day and night to thicken the atmosphere and warm the planet. Whole cities were being built in the Martian valleys, ready to house the millions who could not fit on Earth, but the real changes were happening in space itself. The asteroid belt had become a maze of mining stations and factories. Ships moved between the rocks like busy ants, pulling out metals and rare elements. Everything humanity needed to survive, they now had to make. Themselves? Any word from the council? Elena asked. Marcus made a bitter laugh. They sent a message last week. They wanted to buy medical supplies from us. Apparently there's some plague spreading through the Zilithian colonies and their doctors can't cure it. What did we tell them? What do you think? We told them to solve their own problems. Elena felt a mix of sadness and anger. Part of her wanted to help the sick aliens, even if they had thrown humanity out of the galaxy. But another part of her was tired of always being the ones who helped others while getting nothing back. Dr. Sarah Chun arrived at the observation deck, carrying a tablet full of scientific reports. She had been working on new technologies ever since the exile began. Her hair was gray now, and she looked like she had not slept in weeks, but her eyes were bright with excitement. The quantum drive tests are working, she announced. We don't need their jump gates anymore. Elena turned away from the window. What do you mean? I mean, we can travel faster than anyone in the galaxy now, Sarah said, showing them the data on her tablet. The council species all use the same old jump gate technology. You have to go from one gate to another like following a road. But our new drives can go anywhere through dimensions they don't even know exist, Marcus whistled softly. How fast? A trip that used to take 6 months now takes 6 weeks. And we're just getting started. Give us 5 more years and we might be able to cross the galaxy in a month? This was incredible news, but it also worried Elena. What about the other projects? Sarah's smile grew wider. The nanotechnology is working too. We can now build anything we need as long as we have the raw materials. And the AI systems are getting smarter every day. They're helping us design new ships, new cities, new everything. Elena had seen some of these artificial minds at work. They were not like the simple computers humanity had used before the exile. These new AIs could think and plan and even create art. Some of them were so smart that talking to them was like talking to a genius human, except they never got tired or forgot anything. The galaxy thinks we're finished, Marcus said. They think we're just a bunch of refugees huddled around our home star, begging for scraps. Good, Sarah replied. Let them think that. While they're busy with their politics and their trade, wars were becoming something new. Elena walked over to another window, one that looked out toward the outer system. She could see Jupiter in the distance, surrounded by a ring of space stations. The gas giants' moons had been turned into factories and shipyards. Europa was now covered with cities under its ice shell. Ganymede had become a military base where humans trained with new weapons and tactics. Sometimes I wonder if this is what they were afraid of, Elena said quietly. What do you mean? Asked Marcus, the council. Maybe they could see something we couldn't. Maybe they knew that if they pushed us out, we would become stronger. Maybe they created the very thing they wanted to prevent. Sarah joined them at the window. Does it matter now? They made their choice. We're making ours. Reports had been coming in from the galaxy for months, though they had to be careful how they got the information. Human spies and sympathetic aliens sent secret messages about what was happening out there. The news was not good for the council. The Zilithians were facing rebellions in their outer colonies. Without human peacekeepers to help them, they could not control all their territory. Pirates were attacking trade ships more often, especially along routes that humans used to patrol. Several smaller species were asking why they had to obey a council that had thrown out an entire race for crimes that seemed small, compared to what was happening now. But the most interesting news came from the edge of the galaxy. Deep space monitors had detected strange signals, the kind that usually meant the harvesters were moving again. The council was trying to keep this secret, but their military leaders were quietly preparing for another war. They'll come asking for help eventually, Marcus said. When things get bad enough, they'll forget all about their pride and their fear. What do we tell them when they do? Elena asked. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the stars. We tell them the truth. We tell them that humanity has grown beyond their expectations. We tell them that we don't need their permission anymore. A new ship was approaching the station, this one different from the refugee transports. It was sleek and dark, with lines that seemed to bend the light around them. Elena had never seen anything like it. "Is that one of ours?" she asked. Sarah nodded proudly. "The first of the new exploration ships. We call them Shadow Runners. They can cross galactic space without being detected by any sensors the Council species have." "Where is it going?" "Everywhere," Sarah replied. "We're mapping the galaxy again, but this time we're doing it our way. We're finding resources, safe planets, maybe even other species who aren't part of the Council. We're not just surviving anymore, we're preparing." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Preparing for what?" "For whatever comes next," Sarah said. "The galaxy threw us away like garbage. But garbage can become something useful if you know how to recycle it." The Shadow Runner disappeared from view, heading out toward the galactic rim where no Council ship dared to go. Elena wondered what its crew would find out there in the dark. She wondered if they would find friends or enemies or something else entirely. More ships were coming toward Earth, their lights twinkling like stars. Each one carried people who had lost their homes because of the Council's fear. Each one carried anger and determination and the will to build something better. Elena thought about the alien, who had called humanity dangerous. Maybe he had been right after all. But danger could cut both ways. The galaxy had tried to cage humanity, but all they had done was force them to become something stronger. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity had become. 25 years had passed since humanity was forced to leave the galaxy, and Councillor Thane of the Kithara stood in his private office, reading reports that made his large eyes grow even wider with concern. Outside his window, the capital world of the Galactic Council looked peaceful enough, with its floating cities and perfect weather, but the documents on his desk told a different story. Thane was tall and thin, like all his people, with pale blue skin and fingers that were longer than a human's whole hand. The Kithara were known for being good at gathering information, and Thane had spent years quietly watching what happened in the galaxy after the humans were sent away. The first report was about piracy. Since the humans left, attacks on trade. Ships had gone up by 300%. The old patrol routes that human ships used to guard were now empty space where criminals could do whatever they wanted. Merchant vessels traveled in groups now, scared and slow, making trade more expensive for everyone. The second report was about the Undroxy Syndicate. These slave traders had always been a problem, but when humans were in the galaxy, they stayed, hidden in the dark corners where no one looked. Now they were bold, taking people from whole planets and selling them in markets that the Council pretended did not exist. But the third report was what really worried Thane. It was about humanity itself. For the first 10 years after the exile, human ships had sometimes been spotted at the edge of galactic space. They would appear for a few minutes, scan something, and then disappear before any Council patrol could reach them. But for the last 15 years, there had been almost nothing. No human ships, no human messages, no contact at all. This should have made the Council happy, but it made Thane nervous instead. Silence from 12 billion angry people was not usually a good thing. The few reports they did have were strange and frightening. Deep space sensors sometimes picked up energy readings from the Sol system that were impossible according to known science. Automated probes that went too close to human space simply vanished. 3 years ago, a Vorthan exploration ship had detected a vessel moving through space at speeds that should have torn it apart, but when they tried to follow it, their instruments went crazy and they had to turn back. Thane picked up another file, this one marked with the highest security codes. It contained the testimony of Captain Zek, a freeland trader who claimed to have seen human ships near the galactic rim. According to Zek, these ships were nothing like the human vessels from before the exile. They were bigger, darker, and moved in ways that made no sense. They just appeared out of nowhere, Zek had told the investigators. 1 second, empty space. The next second, 5 ships that looked like they were made from liquid shadow. They scanned my cargo hold, and I could feel something crawling around in my head like they were reading my thoughts. Then they were gone again. Just like that. The investigators had decided that Captain Zek was lying or crazy, but Thane was not so sure. The Freeland were known for being honest, and Zek had been a trusted traitor for 40 years. A soft chime told Thane that someone wanted to enter his office. He put the reports away and told his door to open. General Carr of the Vorthan Empire walked in, his metal feathers looking dull and worn. "Counselor," Carr said in his mechanical voice, "I wanted to discuss the situation on the Rim worlds. More harvester activity?" Thane asked, though he already knew the answer. 3 more monitoring stations have gone dark this month. The pattern is the same as before they attacked us the first time. They're testing our defenses, learning our weaknesses. Thane felt a cold fear in his stomach. The harvesters were alien machines that had tried to destroy all organic life in the Galaxy 30. Years ago, they had been stopped only by a great alliance of species, with humans leading many of the most important battles. The mechanical invaders had retreated to dark space beyond the Rim, but everyone knew they would come back someday. "What do our military analysts say?" Thane asked. General Carr's yellow eyes dimmed. "They say we need more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. But mostly, they say we need tactics that can adapt quickly to new threats, the kind of tactics that humans used to specialize in." Neither of them said what they were both thinking. When the harvesters came back, the galaxy would need every advantage it could get. But the species that had been best at fighting them was now forbidden from helping. "Have there been any changes in council opinion?" Thane asked carefully. "No, there haven't been. The Zilithians still think sending the humans away was the best decision we ever made. They say we're better off without such violent allies, even with pirates attacking our trade ships. Even with the Undroxy taking slaves from our worlds." "General," Carr made a sound like grinding metal, "they blame those problems on other things. They say the pirates are just criminals taking advantage of temporary weakness. They say the Undroxy were always a problem that we can solve with better laws." Thane walked to his window and looked out at the peaceful city below. Children of different species played together in the parks. Merchants from dozens of worlds sold their goods in the markets. Artists created beautiful things that brought joy to everyone who saw them. It was everything the Galactic Council was supposed to protect, but Thane knew how fragile this peace really was. Without strong defenders, without people willing to fight for what was right, all of this could disappear in a matter of months. "General," he said quietly, "what would happen if the harvesters came back today?" The silence stretched for a long time before Carr answered. "We would lose, even with all our ships and weapons. The harvesters learn from their defeats. Whatever comes back will be stronger and smarter than what we fought before. Our current tactics are based on the old war, but they've had 30 years to think of new ways to kill us." Thane turned back to his desk and picked up one of the secret reports about human activity. What if we tried to contact them? What if we asked for their help? General Carr's feathers rustled with what might have been fear. The council would never approve it. And even if they did, why would the humans help us? We threw them out of their homes. We called them dangerous and told them never to come back. Because it's the right thing to do? Humans might be many things, but they're not stupid. They know we only want them when we need someone to die for us. Thane set the report down and looked at his friend. General Carr had fought beside human soldiers. In the last war, he had seen them laugh and cry and bleed for people who weren't even their own species. But he had also seen them be thrown away when the fighting was over. "There's something else," Thane said. "I've been getting reports about human technology. The few glimpses we've had suggest they've advanced much faster than should be possible." "How much faster?" "Centuries faster. In just 25 years, they seem to have developed capabilities that our scientists thought would take 1,000 years to achieve." General Carr was quiet for a moment. "That's not possible. I thought so too, but think about it. 12 billion. Intelligent beings, all working together, all focused on the same goal of survival and growth. No politics between different species. No arguments about who gets to use which resources. Just pure human determination applied to every problem they face. The general's mechanical voice grew softer. You're saying they might be more dangerous now than when we exiled them. I'm saying they might be more capable. Whether that makes them dangerous depends on how angry they are. A new alarm started sounding outside, the deep tone that meant emergency news was coming from the rim worlds. Both Thane and General Carr looked toward the window, where they could see other officials hurrying toward the council chambers. Another monitoring station? Carr asked. Probably. Or maybe something worse. They walked together toward the emergency meeting, but Thane's mind was still on the reports about humanity. Somewhere out there, in the Sol system that had once seemed so small and harmless, 12 billion humans were building something new. They had been given 25 years to grow strong without any interference from the galaxy, Thane wondered. If that had been enough time for them to forgive old wounds. He wondered if it had been too much time for the galaxy to remain safe from what they had become. As they reached the council chambers, where species were already arguing about how to respond to the new crisis, Thane made a decision. He would start preparing his own secret reports about humanity. He would gather every piece of information he could find, because whether the council liked it or not, Thane had the feeling that humanity would be back in their lives very soon. The only question was whether they would return as saviors or as something much more frightening. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came from the outer beacon, a monitoring station on the very edge of galactic space. For 3 days, the station had been sending the same message over and over. They're back. God help us all, they're back. Then the station went silent. General Carr stood in the council's war room, watching as red lights appeared on the great star map that covered one entire wall. Each red light meant a world under attack. In the past week, there had been 3 lights. Now there were 12. The Kepler system just went dark, reported Lieutenant Voss, a young aquatic Union officer whose blue skin had gone pale with fear. All communication cut off 6 hours ago. The last message said the sky was full of ships. Counselor Thane felt sick as he watched more red lights appear on the map. This was exactly what he had been afraid of for years. The Harvesters had returned, but they were not the same mechanical swarm that had attacked the galaxy 30 years ago. Show me the tactical reports from Proxima Station, General Carr ordered. The holographic display in the center of the room flickered to life, showing grainy images from the battle that had destroyed humanity's old colony world. The Harvester ships looked different now. They were still mechanical, but they moved with intelligence and purpose that the old swarm had never shown. They worked together like a pack of hunting animals, cutting off escape routes and concentrating their fire on the most dangerous targets first. They've learned, whispered Dr. Malek, the Council's chief military scientist. These aren't mindless machines anymore. They're thinking, planning, adapting. The worst part was how easily they were winning. The Zilithian Grand Fleet, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, had met the Harvesters at the Gamma Reach system 3 days ago. The battle had lasted less than 4 hours. 800 Zilithian ships had been destroyed, while the Harvesters had lost only a handful of their vessels. "Where is Admiral Crystalline now?" asked Counselor Vex of the Arachnid Collective, her 8 legs clicking nervously on the floor. "In full retreat toward the core worlds," General Carr replied. "What's left of his fleet, anyway?" The door to the war room burst open, and Counselor Jeth of the Zilithian Republic rushed in, his crystal skin flashing with angry red colors. "This is impossible," he declared. "Our ships have the best shields, the most powerful weapons. How are we losing so badly?" Thane looked at the tactical displays where computer models showed how the battles had played out. "Because we're fighting the same way we did 30 years ago, but they're not. Every weapon we use, every strategy we try, they counter it perfectly. It's like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it." "That's because they probably do," said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see a figure that few of them recognized. It was Captain Elena Vasquez, but she looked much older than when she had last stood in the council chambers. Her hair was white now, and lines of age marked her face. but her eyes still burned with the same intensity they had shown during her trial 50 years ago. "What are you doing here?" demanded Counselor Jeth. "Humans are forbidden in galactic space." Elena walked calmly to the center of the room, ignoring the weapons that several guards had drawn. "I'm here because you're all about to die, and someone thought you should know." General Carr stepped forward, his metal feathers bristling. "Explain." "The Harvesters didn't just retreat after we beat them. They studied us. They learned from every battle, every tactic, every weapon we used against them. For 30 years they've been preparing for this moment." She gestured to the star map with its growing collection of red lights. "They know exactly how each of your species fights because they've been watching you. They know your ship designs, your command structures, your battle doctrines. You're not fighting an enemy. You're fighting yourselves if you were smarter and had better technology." "How do you know this?" asked Thane. Elena's smile was cold. "Because we've been watching them too. The difference is we learn from our observations." The war room fell silent except for the steady beeping of distress signals from dying worlds. Everyone stared at the human woman who had somehow appeared in the most secure location in the galaxy without setting off a single alarm. "You want our help?" Elena continued. "That's why I'm here, isn't it? Your pride kept you from asking, but your survival instincts finally won." Counselor Jeth's crystal skin flashed bright red. "We don't need help from exiled criminals." "Really?" Elena walked over to the tactical display and touched the controls. New information appeared showing projected harvester movements based on their current advance rate. At their current speed, they'll reach the core worlds in 4 months. The major population centers will fall in 6 months. Every species in this room will be extinct in a year. She turned to face the assembled aliens, her expression serious. "Unless something changes very quickly, what are you proposing?" asked General Carr. "I'm not proposing anything. I'm delivering a message. The human government has decided to make you an offer." Thane felt his heart racing. "What kind of offer?" "Full human reintegration into galactic society. All colonies restored, all trade rights returned, and a permanent seat on the Council's executive committee with veto power over species-wide sanctions." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Counselor Vex spoke up. "And in return?" "We save your lives?" Counselor Jeth made a sound like breaking glass. "This is blackmail. You're using our crisis to force political concessions." Elena shrugged. "You're free to handle the harvesters yourselves." "How's that working out so far?" Another red light appeared on the star map, then another. The Vorthan home system was now under attack, along with 2 major trade hubs. "How do we know you can actually help?" asked Dr. Malik. "Your technology was impressive 50 years ago, but these new harvesters are beyond anything we've seen." Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device that looked like a crystal cube. She set it on the central table, and it immediately began projecting a 3-dimensional image of space around the galaxy. The image showed thousands of ships moving in formation, but they were unlike anything any of the aliens had ever seen. The vessels seemed to bend light around them, making them hard to focus on. Their designs were sleek and organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. "This is the human fleet as of this morning," Elena said calmly. "We have 15,000 ships ready for immediate deployment, with more being completed every day." General Carr leaned forward, studying the holographic ships. "Those designs? They're not based on any technology I know." "That's correct. We've had 50 years to develop new approaches to physics, engineering, and warfare. Turns out, when you give human scientists unlimited resources and no political interference, they can accomplish remarkable things." Thane counted the ships in the display and felt dizzy. 15,000? How is that possible? You only had a few hundred ships when you were exiled. We've been busy. The cube's projection changed, showing a battle between human ships and harvester vessels. The human ships moved like dancers, weaving between enemy fire while their own weapons cut through harvester shields as if they weren't even there. In minutes, the mechanical ships were reduced to glowing debris. This engagement took place yesterday. At the frontier station, Elena explained. A small harvester scout force encountered one of our patrol groups. As you can see, the outcome was decisive. Dr. Malik was studying the tactical data that scrolled along the bottom of the projection. Your weapons ... they're using principles I don't understand? And your ships are moving faster than our sensors should be able to track. Like I said, we've been busy. Counselor Jeff stood up, his crystal body flashing angry colors. Even if this is real, even if you can fight the harvesters, why should we trust you? You were exiled for being too dangerous. How do we know you won't turn those weapons on us once the crisis is over? Elena looked at him for a long moment. You don't? But you have a choice to make right now. You can swallow your pride and accept our help, or you can maintain your principles and die with dignity. Personally, I recommend survival, but that's just my opinion. Another alarm sounded, and Lieutenant Voss announced that the Harvester fleet had just jumped into the Centauri system, only 30 light-years from the core worlds. How long do we have to decide? Asked Thane. The offer expires when the last Council world falls to the Harvesters. After that, we'll make our own arrangements with whoever's left. Elena picked up her projection device and headed for the door. I'll be on my ship for the next 24 hours. After that, we return to human space and let you handle things. Your own way. She paused at the doorway and looked back at the assembled aliens. For what it's worth, I hope you make the right choice. There are good people in the galaxy worth saving. It would be a shame to lose them all because of politics. After she left, the war room erupted in arguments. Some species demanded that the humans be arrested for violating the exile. Others insisted that survival was more important than pride. The debate raged for hours while more red lights appeared on the star map. Finally, as reports came in that the Harvester fleet was only hours away from the heavily populated Altair system, Counselor Thane called for a vote. The motion to accept humanity's terms passed by a single vote. The human fleet arrived like ghosts made real, one moment. The space around the besieged Altair system was empty except for the massive Harvester swarm tearing apart the planet's defenses. The next moment, thousands of sleek ships appeared from nowhere. Moving in perfect formation like a school of deadly fish, Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical displays show the battle unfolding. She was 73 years old now, but the neural interface linked to her brain made her reactions faster than any young pilot. Through the ship's sensors, she could see everything happening across the entire system at once. Harvester Command. Ship identified, reported Commander Torres, Elena's second in command. It's the large pyramid at the center of their formation. I see it, Elena replied. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt the familiar rush of combat. It had been 50 years since she had fought in a real war, but some things never changed. All ships implement Pattern 7. Let's show them what we learned. The human ships moved like dancers, weaving between the Harvester vessels with impossible grace. Their weapons were beams of pure energy that cut through enemy shields as if they were made of paper. But more than their technology, it was their coordination that amazed the alien observers. General Carr watched from his command ship at the edge of the system, his metal feathers bristling with excitement. How are they doing that? He asked his tactical officer. I don't know, sir. They're moving like a single organism. Every ship knows exactly where every other ship is going to be. There's no communication lag, no hesitation, no confusion. On the human flagship, Elena smiled as she felt the battle flow through her consciousness. Every human ship in the fleet was connected through quantum-linked computers that shared information faster than light itself. When one captain had an idea, every other captain knew about it instantly. When one ship found a weakness in the enemy formation, the entire fleet could exploit it immediately. This was what 50 years of isolation had created. Not just better weapons or faster ships, but a completely new way of thinking about warfare that the Harvester swarm tried to adapt, changing their tactics as they had done so successfully against the other galactic species. But every time they shifted their approach, the human fleet shifted with them, staying one step ahead. The mechanical minds that had learned to counter every alien military doctrine found themselves fighting an enemy that thought in ways they had never encountered. "Target the command ship," Elena ordered. "All heavy cruisers concentrate fire." 12 of the largest human vessels turned toward the pyramid-shaped Harvester command ship. Their weapons were not the energy beams used by the smaller ships, but something that looked like holes in space itself. Where the dark energy touched the enemy vessel, matter simply ceased to exist. The command ship's shields flickered and died. Its hull began to dissolve, and suddenly the entire Harvester swarm stopped moving. "They're shutting down," Commander Torres reported, sounding amazed. "All of them, everywhere in the system," Elena nodded. "The old Harvesters were individuals working together. These new ones are more like fingers on a hand. Cut off the hand and the fingers stop working." The battle for Altair was over in less than 2 hours. A Harvester force that would have taken days for the galactic fleet to defeat had been destroyed completely, with 0 human casualties. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light, carried by the quantum communication networks that humanity had built during their exile. On every world, aliens watched in amazement as the human fleet moved from system to system, destroying Harvester forces that had seemed unstoppable just days before. But it was not just the military victories that impressed the galactic observers. It was how the humans fought at the Vorthan colony of New Metals. Human medic ships arrived even before the battle was over, treating wounded aliens with medicines that were decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. At the Aquatic Union world of Deep Current, human engineers worked alongside local technicians to repair damaged cities, using construction techniques that could rebuild in hours what had taken years to create originally. "They're not the same species we exiled," Counselor Thane said to General Carr as they watched human ships dock at the orbital stations around the capital world. "Look at them. Look at how they move, how they work together." The human crews walking through the stations were different from the humans the galaxy remembered. They seemed calmer, more focused, as if 50 years of forced cooperation had changed something fundamental about their nature. They worked with quiet efficiency, never wasting motion or energy, never arguing or competing with each other. "It's like they've become a hive mind," General Carr observed. "But they're still individuals. I can see them making personal choices, having their own thoughts." "Maybe that's what we were really afraid of," Thane said quietly. "Not that they would become more violent, but that they would become more unified. A species that thinks and acts as one is the most dangerous thing in the universe." The final battle took place at the galactic rim, where the main Harvester fleet had been building up for their assault on the core worlds. Intelligence reports said there were over 1 million enemy ships gathered in the dark space between galaxies, along with massive construction platforms that were building more vessels. Every day, the human fleet that jumped into that system was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 50,000 ships moved in perfect coordination, each one more advanced than anything the galaxy had dreamed possible. Leading them was Elena's flagship, now upgraded with weapons that could destroy entire moons. The battle lasted 3 days. Not because the humans were losing, but because there were simply so many Harvester ships to destroy. Elena watched from her bridge as human technology carved through the enemy like a sword through smoke. The Harvesters tried every tactic they had learned from studying galactic warfare, but nothing worked against an enemy that had spent 50 years preparing for exactly this fight. On the 3rd day, the last Harvester construction platform exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from neighboring galaxies. The mechanical race that had threatened all organic life was finally extinct. Elena stood in the council chambers once again, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood a dozen other human representatives, each one a leader from the colonies that had been rebuilt in the outer systems. The chamber itself had been rebuilt too, expanded to accommodate the new permanent human seats. "The crisis is over," Elena announced to the assembled aliens. "The Harvester threat has been eliminated completely. Our ships will continue patrolling the rim to make sure nothing like this happens again." Counselor Jeth of the Zilithians, looking older and more tired than when Elena had last seen him, raised one crystalline hand. And now? What does humanity want from us? Elena looked around the chamber at the representatives of species that had once voted to exile her people. Some looked grateful, others looked afraid. All of them looked like they understood that the balance of power in the galaxy had changed forever. "We want what we've always wanted," she said simply. "To live in peace, to raise our families, to explore the stars. The difference is that now we don't need your permission to do it." She gestured to her fellow humans. "We've established new colonies on 47 worlds beyond the rim, in space you've never explored. We've made contact with 6 new species that aren't part of your council. We've built trade networks and communication systems that span half the galaxy." Counselor Thane leaned forward. "Are you saying you don't need us anymore?" "I'm saying we've grown beyond the system that cast us out, but that doesn't mean we want to be enemies. The galaxy is big enough for all of us as long as everyone respects everyone else's right to exist." A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. It was young Counselor Zara of the Philian Republic, a species that had joined the council only recently. "What about the future? How do we make sure something like this never happens again?" Elena smiled, but it was not entirely a friendly expression. "That's simple. You remember what happened when you tried to get rid of us. You remember that exile and fear only make problems worse, not better. And you remember that humanity is no longer the weak species that begged for acceptance 50 years ago." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We came back because it was the right thing to do. We saved you because we believe in protecting innocent life. But we didn't come back to be junior partners in someone else's government." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, General Carr spoke up. "What are you proposing? A new arrangement? Humanity takes responsibility for galactic defense and exploration beyond the rim. The Council handles internal affairs and trade regulation. We work together when our interests align, and we stay out of each other's way when they don't." Counselor Thane stood up slowly. "And if we refuse?" Elena's expression didn't change, but everyone in the room could feel the temperature drop. "Then you refuse." "We'll continue doing what we're doing anyway. The question is whether you want to be part of it or not." The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Even Counselor Jeth, who had fought against humanity for so long, agreed to the new arrangement. They had all seen what happened to species that opposed human interests.